The air was thick with dust, the kind that clung to your throat and stung your eyes, as Ismael Mohammed led his family north toward Jabalia. The ceasefire had come like a whisper after 15 months of relentless war. And now, under a gray January sky in 2025, they walked, a weary caravan of hope and heartbreak. Ismael, 47, leaned on his cane, his single arm swinging with purpose, his wife Badrea at his side, her face etched with exhaustion but unyielding resolve. Their 7 children trailed behind, Wasim, 24, carrying his toddler daughter, Nasim, 19, clutching a worn backpack, Maysoon, 16, holding her younger brother Mohammed's hand, and the others, Yasser, Abdul Rahman, and little Aisha, their eyes wide with a mix of fear and wonder. This was no ordinary journey. It was a return to a home they feared no longer existed, to a life that might only live in memory. The road from Deir al-Balah to Jabalia stretched like a scar across Gaza's battered landscape. Families like Ismael's dotted the path, their belongings stuffed into plastic bags or slung over shoulders. The silence was eerie, broken only by the crunch of footsteps on gravel and the occasional sob of a child. Ismael's heart pounded with a strange cocktail of joy and dread. "I haven't slept for the past 3 nights from joy," he had told a reporter days ago, his voice trembling with the weight of longing. "I long for my land, my town Jabalia, and the people of the north." But now, as they neared the place that had cradled their lives, weddings, feasts, the laughter of children, he wondered if joy had been too generous a word. "Will it still be there, Baba?" Maysoon asked, her voice small against the wind. She was 16, old enough to remember the house in vivid detail, the blue-tiled kitchen where Badrea baked bread, the courtyard where they played under the olive tree. Ismael forced a smile, his weathered face betraying none of the uncertainty gnawing at him. "It's our home, Maysoon. It's always there, even if it's changed." His words felt hollow, but they were all he had to give her. The family had fled Jabalia when the war intensified, bombs turning their vibrant town into a battlefield. For 15 months, they'd lived in a tent in Deir al-Balah's refugee camp, a cramped, filthy square of canvas that smelled of damp earth and despair. The children had fallen ill, fevers from the cold, coughs from the dust, and a deeper sickness from the constant fear of shrapnel. Badrea had held them together, her hands calloused from washing clothes in brackish water, her prayers a quiet anchor in the chaos. Ismael, battling diabetes and the phantom pain of his missing arm, had felt useless, his pride chipped away with every day he couldn't provide. Now, the ceasefire offered a chance to reclaim what was theirs, but the cost of those 15 months lingered in their hollowed eyes. As they passed the remnants of a shattered school, Wasim adjusted his daughter Lila on his hip. She was too young to understand why her world had shrunk to a tent, but old enough to sense her parents' fear. "Baba, tell me about our house again," she mumbled, tugging at Wasim's sleeve. He exchanged a glance with his wife, Noor, whose tired eyes mirrored his own. "It's big, Lila," he said softly. "Big enough for you to run and play. There's a tree you can climb, and a room just for you." His voice cracked on the last word. He hadn't seen the house since they fled. For all he knew, it was rubble. Badrea overheard and squeezed Wasim's shoulder. "Don't fill her head with dreams yet," she whispered. "We don't know what's left." Her words were sharp, but her touch was gentle, a mother's balance of truth and care. Wasim nodded, his jaw tight. He remembered the night before they fled, sitting with his mother in the kitchen. "If we lose the house, Mama, we lose everything," he'd said, his voice heavy with dread. Badreya had shaken her head fiercely. "We lose nothing as long as we're together. Buildings can be rebuilt. Family can't." Those words had carried them through the tense, endless nights. But now, facing the unknown, they felt like a fragile promise. The road curved past Gaza City's outskirts, where skeletal buildings loomed like ghosts. Nassim, the quiet one, walked faster, as if outrunning his memories. He'd been studying engineering before the war, dreaming of building bridges. Now, he wondered if he'd ever hold a book again. "Baba, what if it's all gone?" he asked suddenly, his voice cutting through the group's silence. Ismael stopped, his cane sinking into the dirt. He wanted to say something wise, something to shield his son from the truth. Instead, he said, "Then we start again, Nassim. We always do." The family's footsteps slowed as Jabalia came into view. The town was unrecognizable, a maze of crumbled stone and twisted metal. The air smelled of ash and loss. Maysoon gripped Mohammed's hand tighter, her breath catching. "It's not home," she whispered, tears brimming. Badreya knelt beside her, wiping her cheek. "Home is us, Habibti. Wherever we are, that's home." But even Badreya's voice wavered, her strength tested by the devastation before them. They reached their street, or what was left of it. The olive tree was gone, its roots buried under debris. Their house, once a two-story haven of blue tiles and warm lights, was a skeleton. The roof had collapsed, the upper floor pancaked onto the ground. Walls bore gaping holes, as if the war had clawed through them. Furniture lay scattered, a broken chair, a shredded rug, a child's toy half buried in ash. Ismael stood frozen, his joy from 3 sleepless nights replaced by a hollow ache. This was their center, their sanctuary, reduced to ruins. Wasim set Lila down, his hands shaking. "This can't be it," he muttered, kicking at a piece of rubble. Noor wrapped an arm around him, her own tears falling silently. The younger children wandered, picking through the debris, searching for anything familiar. Mohammed found a cracked photo frame, the glass smeared with soot. It held a picture from Maysoon's 10th birthday, all smiles and cake. "Look, Mama," he said, holding it up. Badreya took it, her fingers tracing the faces. "We were happy here," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Ismael limped to the center of what was once their living room. He could still see it, the evenings spent laughing, the arguments, the love that filled every corner. "Badreya," he said, his voice breaking, "do you remember the night before we left? You told me we'd come back. You were right." She joined him, her hand finding his. "We're here, Ismael. That's what matters." But as they stood amid the wreckage, the weight of rebuilding loomed larger than the war itself. The ceasefire was fragile, the future uncertain, but for now, they were together, and that was enough to keep walking forward. The January wind howled through the shattered walls of what was once Ismael Mohammed's home in Jabalia, carrying the faint scent of ash and memory. The ceasefire, fragile as it was in January 2025, had brought them back to this broken place after 15 months of exile in Deir al-Balah's refugee camp. Ismael, 47, stood in the ruins of his living room, his single arm trembling as he clutched a cracked photo frame. Badreya, his wife, knelt beside a pile of debris, sifting through fragments of their past, a torn curtain, a child's shoe, a piece of blue tile from the kitchen where she'd baked bread for her 7 children. Wasim, Nassim, Maysoon, Yasser, Abdurrahman, Mohammed, and little Aisha moved quietly around her, each grappling with the weight of a home that no longer stood. The silence was heavy, broken only by the distant murmur of other families returning to their own wreckage. This was not the joyful homecoming Ismael had dreamed of during those sleepless nights, but it was a beginning. "We'll rebuild," Ismael said, his voice firm despite the tremor in his chest. He looked at Badrea, whose eyes were red but resolute. "We've lost things before. We'll do it again." She nodded, but her gaze lingered on the rubble, as if searching for the life they'd left behind. The house had been more than walls. It was where Wasim's wedding feast had filled the courtyard with laughter, where Maysoon learned to read under the olive tree, where Mohammed's first steps echoed on the tiled floor. Now, those memories felt like ghosts trapped in the debris. Maysoon, 16, sat cross-legged on the ground, clutching the photo from her 10th birthday. "Baba, last night, before we left the camp, I dreamed we were all here," she said, her voice soft but piercing. "You were telling me stories about Grandpa, how he built this house with his hands. I woke up thinking it was still whole." Ismael's heart ached. The night before they fled Jabalia, Maysoon had sat with him in the dark, whispering her fears. "Baba, what if we never come back?" she'd asked, her voice small. He'd promised her they would, that their home would wait. Now, standing in its ruins, he wondered if he'd lied. Wasim, the eldest at 24, paced the edge of the property, his toddler daughter Layla clinging to his leg. His wife, Noor, sorted through a pile of broken furniture, salvaging what she could. "This was our table," Noor said, lifting a splintered plank. "We ate here every night." Wasim stopped, his jaw tight. The night before they fled, he'd sat at that table with Badrea, confessing his fears. "Mama, if we lose this place, what do I give Layla? She deserves a home, not a tent." Badrea had gripped his hand, her voice steady. "You give her love, Wasim. That's her home." Now, as he looked at the wreckage, her words felt both true and impossibly distant. Nasim, 19, wandered further into the ruins, his engineering dreams buried under the weight of survival. He kicked at a piece of concrete, revealing a rusted toy car, Mohammed's favorite. "I was going to build bridges," he muttered, half to himself. "Now I'm digging through rubble." Badrea overheard and approached, her hand on his shoulder. "You'll build again, Nasim. Not just bridges, homes, futures. Start here." Her words were a lifeline, pulling him from despair. He nodded, picking up the toy car and slipping it into his pocket for Mohammed. The younger children, Yasser, Abdulrahman, and Aisha, explored the debris with a mix of curiosity and sorrow. Aisha, barely 5, tugged at Badrea's sleeve. "Mama, where's my bed?" she asked, her voice trembling. Badrea knelt, brushing dust from Aisha's cheek. "We'll make you a new one, Habibti, better than before." But as Aisha wandered off, Badrea's composure cracked. She turned to Ismael, whispering, "How do we start again when everything's gone?" Ismael pulled her close, his cane digging into the dirt. "We start with us. That's all we've ever needed." As the sun dipped low, casting long shadows over Jabalia's ruins, the family gathered what they could. A neighbor, an old man named Khalil, shuffled by, his own home reduced to rubble. "Ismael, you're back," he called, his voice hoarse. "We're all that's left now." Ismael nodded, the weight of community binding them. "We'll rebuild together, Khalil, one brick at a time." Khalil's eyes glistened, and he limped away, carrying his own broken dreams. The family set up a makeshift camp in the corner of their lot, using salvaged blankets and a tarp from the refugee camp. As night fell, they sat in a circle, sharing stale bread from Deir al-Bala. Mohammed, holding his rediscovered toy car, looked at Ismael. "Baba, will it ever be like before?" he asked. Ismael hesitated, the truth too heavy. "Not like before, Habibi," he said finally, "but better, because we'll make it ours again." Mohammed nodded, clutching the car tighter. Badria lit a small fire, its glow flickering across their faces. "We've survived worse," she said, her voice a quiet anchor. "This war took our house, but not our heart." Wasim looked at Noor, then at Lila, asleep in her arms. "We'll make it a home again," he vowed, his voice steady for the first time that day. The family sat in silence, the fire's warmth a small defiance against the cold. Jabalia was broken, the ceasefire uncertain, but they were together, and in that unity they found the strength to begin again.